All right, Chelsea fans, welcome back to a very somber episode of the London What's Blue podcast. Dan, one of your hosts here, alongside Brandon and Nick. And we unfortunately are talking about Chelsea being dismantled, demolished, and absolutely destroyed in North London in Chelsea's 5-0 loss to Mikel Arteta's Arsenal. And boy, oh boy, the sting is strong coming out of this one. The feelings are all across the board, but mostly on the bad side of the board. And I know, Nick, people are wondering, they just want to get a temp check from you, a heat check from you to start the episode. Are we going to get a little bit of the powder keg back here?
Oh, he's back. He's fully back. I think to kick this off, like everyone knows my utter disdain for Arsenal and their invented football, uh, made up elitism that they throw out to everyone who will listen. Uh, to lose to them and to lose to them in the fashion that we did today is, I mean, embarrassing is the word, or whatever stronger word you have than embarrassing would be where I'd start this. And yeah, there's a real reckoning now. I mean, I think the tone of the club and the fan base has kind of fluctuated all year. There wasn't much fluctuation after this one. It feels like a pretty clear indicator of things to come.
And Brandon, as we were discussing before we started recording, people coming out of the woodwork, finding an opportunity as an Arsenal fan to engage with a Chelsea supporter. And you were a victim to that, a little bit of a blast from the past, just blowing up your phone this afternoon just to rub it in.
I mean, look, there's some people in my life I hadn't heard from in a long time. All of a sudden, decided to show up, right? And a bit convenient, and I just left it on red. I just had to do my part.
Well, glad you turned the read receipts off. Hopefully, they're on for members of the Chelsea board for any type of feedback that they should be receiving at this point in time. But before we get into just the vibes, the therapy talk session that we have after a match result like this, we do have to check it with the 3-word match review. And I know, Nick, there's probably a few in here that you're really going to enjoy, even though for the wrong reasons.
Oh, it's all for the wrong reasons, but you have to laugh to keep from crying. Robert Hoon Coulter with London is Blue in parens, the sad kind, which is, baby, you're right there. El Grand Sasquatch with Squad Silent Quitting. These damn Gen Zers and they're quite quitting. Hokey Karma with Dark Dark Day. Eocene with Every Week Sucks. I love that. That's great. Made of Black with Shame, Shame, Shame. The Game of Thrones gif, of course. Pablo P with Tortured Fans Department. Just wonderful. And current. That's well done. Nate with I'm Dead Inside with a couple of gifs. One of Kai winning the Champions League for us, and then the other, the Michael Scott gif. And Mr. Thurman with Worse Than Potterball.
That's quite the run. Quite the run. I went with another historic L because, boy, oh boy, we're writing plenty of chapters this season, but they all involve the wrong type of history. You're absolutely on the losing side of it in every way, shape, or form. Brandon, what did you have?
I said, what's the point? I mean, at this place in the season, it's hard to understand of like where it can go anymore. We've blown the cups. We've blown potentially Europe. So really from here on out, there's not much left.
I went with 5 steps back. This was a pretty significant mile marker in the season. And, I think there have been times where we've talked about, 1 step forward, 2 steps back. This was a capitulation. So a lot of soul searching to do here, Dan.
Brandon, I will let you, because you're the most experienced one at this, get the admin out of the way before we jump into some of those match details. So what do we have to tell the listeners about?
Well, look, call to action. We need you to take action because Chelsea will not. So we need the 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Easy, free. Then jump over to YouTube on the mobile, subscribe, hit the bell notification. We are putting them all up there. More content coming at you. You can see me. I'm in my formal black attire because it is a damn funeral out there. And then we're going to have you sign up for the London is Blue Dispatch, link in the description, as well as our socials. Sam, CFC Central, puts them out every Wednesday. And then if you got a couple bucks laying around, join us on Discord. That's literally the best community for Chelsea fans. If you're looking for friends, be there. Mr. Thurman is very vocal in there, who you heard in the 3-word match review, along with Eosine and many, many others that get involved with the show. Plus, it's the easiest way for you to get your content submitted to be in the show. It's just the way it is. So anyways, Dan, let's jump into this one.
Yeah, it was Arsenal this past Tuesday, April 23rd in the Premier League at the Emirates Stadium. Arsenal 5-0 to Chelsea. Trossard got it started in the 4th minute, but boy, oh boy, we were like, oh, optimistic. Halftime, 1-0. Could have been worse. And then it got worse. The halftime absolutely came. The halftime pep talk did not. The demotivation was in full effect, and Ben White got it going in the 52nd minute. Kai Havertz in the 57th. Then Kai Havertz again in the 65th. And boy, oh boy, Ben White also putting himself on a brace in the 70th minute, because that was just too perfect. Perfect.
You know what this was like, Dan? If you're a How I Met Your Mother fan out there, it was like Slapsgiving, but when the slap was held back for a future moment. That's kind of how halftime felt, whereas like you were waiting for it in the first half, and then the second half came around, and it was just 5 in a row or 4 in a row, I should say. It's basically how it felt to me. I don't know about you.
That's about right. But why don't we take the people through the lineup again? We don't have to spend too much time on it, but just to recount who were the individuals involved in this massacre.
Yeah, the sofa scores for these are wild, by the way. Let's throw this out here. Georgi Petrovic did himself no service in the middle of the goal. Alfie Gilchrist, first start. That's pretty impressive in the league. That's great. Axel Disasi, Benoit Badiashile, whose sofa score gave us 7.0. Okay. Mark Cucurella at left back. So that's a completely changed back line, except for Cucurella from the weekend, which, I expected there to be subs. We just played 2.5 days ago. So fair enough. Enzo and Caicedo making up the midfield pairing that just won't quit, but basically did. Noni Madueke on the right, Conor Gallagher in the middle, Mikhailo Mudryk on the left. Gallagher and Mudryk started inverted and then kind of went back to normal, and Nicholas Jackson up top. Subs, Raheem Sterling in the 66th minute, Trevoh Chalobah in the 67th minute, Thiago Silva in the 78th minute, Cesare Casadei in the 79th minute. Bettinelli, Chukwuemeka, Turainen, Dyer, and Washington unused subs, and they were the only 5 that really were able to cover themselves in glory today because they did not get on the pitch.
I guess lack of participation is an award in this one, because you're not written into the history books as being involved as a part of the problem.
Benoit Badiashile got us this sofa score. I mean, goodness gracious, guys, what is that? He's our highest rated player.
Let's talk about some other things that are pretty ugly, and that's the top line stats from the match. I know, Brandon, you enjoy the rundown here most days, not today.
Not today at all, but we had a 1.6 XG to Arsenal's 3.37. We had 55% ball possession. Obviously didn't do much with it because we had 7 shots, 1 on target, 4 off target, and 2 blocked. Arsenal huffing and puffing their way to 27 shots, 10 on target, 7 off target, and 10 block shots. So, look, I think if you look it up, I think Benoit had about 10 of those 10, which would have gotten him to that 7.0, I think. Corner kicks, offsides, fouls, it's all in the even, right? A couple cautions apiece. There's really no differences there. We had 2 big chances, missed how many? Yep, you guessed it, all 2. They had 4 and only missed 2 of theirs. We did hit the woodwork for participation trophy, bonus points in FPL if it may, but that was about it because goalkeeper saves. We were negative 1.95 to their 0.02 when it came to goals prevented. So essentially David Raya did squat while Petrovic, unfortunately, was flapping a little bit. But I tell you what, 27 shots. That's like 3 matches worth of shots for a goalkeeper in one game. So a hell of a lot going on in and around his box.
Oh, the one random stat we have from OptaJoe is 5. Arsenal recorded their biggest ever victory against Chelsea across all competitions. While this was the Blues' heaviest defeat in a London derby since losing 6-0 to Queen's Park Rangers in March of 1986. Domination. Again, this is
not a great year for Chelsea Football Club, 1986, by the way. Go look that up.
I mean, at least it wasn't our, milestone 1000th match or anything like that. So we still got that over him.
Sure.
Well, those are some of the things. I don't believe there's a shithouse moment in the match, Nick. I'm just going to bypass that one. You're shaking your head no. Excellent. Well, then we're going to get an ad break out of the way when we come back. We're going to talk about how the project has collapsed. That's it. That's all the little bit of, information and teasing you get about that one. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. Okay. So the project collapsing. Good job. Bad job. Mission accomplished banners printed before the job was actually complete. That's where Chelsea Football Club is at under the new ownership structure. But I think, Nick, what I wanted to point out here is that, just to try to add a little bit of context, Chelsea's recent history against Arsenal, as you've pointed out, you don't like losing to them. The recent history has been terrible. In our last 10 matches, we are 1 win, 7 losses, and 2 draws, all competitions against Arsenal. It is not a pretty picture. The last time we had 2 back-to-back wins was the Europa League final, where we won 4-1, and then playing them in the league again, a 2-1 victory. And then since then, 1 win.
I like how you cut it off, though, right before we had back-to-back victories. So it's like we had 3 wins in our last 12, but we decided to really kneecap ourselves on the stats there, Dan.
I could go with last 5, and it looks even worse. True. I mean,
winless.
If you want to get closer to recency.
Look, this is we've officially swapped places with them, probably worse from where we were used to being. I mean, they were in such a shambles in 2012 on. I mean, really, since they built the Emirates, they've been in shambles until the last couple of years. And I remember, looking back at that December 2019 one, which we, had the late Tammy winner, how full of hope we were with that young squad, with all these Chelsea boys fighting against sanctions and one of our guys in the dugout, and how different everything has been since that. It is absolutely wild. And it's really come full circle. I mean, we've become the thing that I hated and I made fun of so much throughout my entire fandom as a Chelsea fan. And it's truly, today was truly the icing on the poop Sunday, because it was complete and utter domination. There's not one positive thing to say about this performance. And, just look at the goals we've given up in this time. I mean, it's crazy. I think just looking at this, 2-2, 1-1, we beat them somehow. 2-1, 3-2-5. Yikes.
Brandon, and you mentioned it earlier, but there was this other stat from OptaJoe saying 27. Arsenal had 13 shots in the first half and 14 in the second half against Chelsea, 27 total. The 2 highest shot totals and a half of football against them on record in the Premier League since 2003-04.
I think it shows the separation between the two teams right now. And what sucks is that we still could have had the biggest banter this season of all, right? We could have won a cup, should have gotten to a second cup final, right? We could have ended their title hopes today. But this young team has nothing of that type of character in them whatsoever. And that's part of the project. And that comes with the territory that these co-sporting directors have built. But to see Arsenal still not be in a great situation, I would say, administratively, I'd say for them to have Arteta, who I don't think is a great manager. I think he's in a good situation, right? But I don't think if he were to rock up to Real Madrid or a lot of other clubs, it'd work. I think Arsenal's really the perfect situation for him. Now we have to go and deal with getting absolutely bodied and no one really putting a foot in or rallying the team to say stop. We gave up 27 shots. The best thing about that, Dan, is the stat that's not here that says 10 of those shots were blocked. And at least we had some resolve and character to step in front of those. Again, we usually give up what, 9-10 shots a game. I mean, we talk about this every week. We talk about the XG and the shots and things like that. 27 is an absolute shellacking on the day. And no one on this Chelsea side had any answers. And also, you look at it like it could have been a lot different if we would have looked at our inability to score again, which we will. It would have changed everything. But defensively, this just shows, Nick, how absolutely crushed we were statistically, and the eye test absolutely backed it up. I mean, 4th minute, like you couldn't have had a worse start.
No, it was terrible. I mean, they punched us in the face straight away. 13 shots in the first half.
It's more like we were running and they kicked our leg behind us and we tripped and fell.
But they knew. I mean, like anyone who's watched us play this year knows that we're front runners. Like everything has to go right for this team to feel confident and play good football. Everything has to go right. So the Everton result a week ago, less or a little more than a week ago, everything went right straight away. We cruised to a 6-0 win, right? That's obviously, these are two very different sides of the same coin where we completely shit the bed here. And they came out and they knew we're fragile. We don't have some of our best players. You know, I think you look at this lineup and you look at like what our quote unquote strongest 11 would be. And there's quite a few subs that you'd make in this. And they did this intentionally, Dan. They came out and did this intentionally. They said, fuck you guys. You're not good. We're going to bury you. And they did. And the only good spell that we had in this game was like the last 20 minutes before halftime where we finally got a little bit of foot into the game. We had a couple of chances and, you know, obviously Nico puts that ball across that could have been an own goal, but gets saved anyway. And that was basically it. That was all the fight that we had. It was 20 minutes.
I think the summation of it comes down to the fact that like we are not consistent enough as a team and as organization to be top 4, to be top 6, and to barely scrape top 8 in this moment. We've watched opportunity come and opportunity go almost at a standstill for the majority of the season and not take the opportunity presented in front of us. And Brandon, to the point you made that like we are clubs in divergent paths right now where Arsenal is on an ascendancy, and it is painful to say that. It is almost vomit inducing to say that, but like they are challenging for the league. They have bought players who have added value to their team. You might not like the players that they bought. You might think that they're lesser than some of the players that Chelsea got, but they've worked for their system. They're helping them execute. They're helping them win games. We are passing up on every opportunity we get to get back into Europe. We are not necessarily, we have more misses than hits with the players we brought in over the last 2 years. There are players who were here than less than 6 months, less than 12 months, less than 18 months into their multi-year contract experience with Chelsea. And like this match includes every little problem that we have seen over the course of the season. It is a perfect what went wrong with Chelsea this season. You just watch this 90 minutes and maybe you don't do that right away because it is pain inducing. Horrible defending, not getting into scoring positions, no intensity in the challenges, poor management in the moment, no ability to get this team rallied coming out of halftime, and no ability to get these subs dialed in and corrected. I think that to me, Nick, is like you could look at this match, you could pick out a couple of things. You mentioned a few of them, but every one of the problems that Chelsea has experienced this season was on full display this match. And said it's the perfect example. Just 23-24, this was Chelsea.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, look, I mean, this is not, we talked about this earlier. This is not the lineup that would be out there if everyone was healthy, but no one's been healthy all fucking year. I mean,
what's going on with that, Nick? Are you kidding me? Chilwell, Gusto, and Palmer all out? Like clearly whoever's making decisions behind the scenes is gambling and losing.
I mean, yeah, lost. I mean, it's a lost season for so many players that are, again, Gusto and Palmer are 21. These guys should be able to play every couple of days, no problem. And it looks like we're the team who had the deep Champions League run, not Arsenal. Like they came out today with so much more impetus and looked so much more fit than we did. Looked like they had so much more fight than we did. And like, look, part of this, I'm just throwing this out there, guys. Like, talk about the manager, talk about the players, talk about the sporting directors. At every level, there was a lack of professional pride and professionalism today. And that's a real problem. Like, that's going to extend beyond contract lengths and individual sofa scores and all that stuff. A lot of people quit today.
Look, the also like have some awareness about the title race, right? We just took them from plus 51 to plus 56 goal difference, giving them the ultimate edge if it comes down to tiebreakers. Like, this is the stuff we think about as fans. Surely they do as players, but to just absolutely roll over and give it up in every sense of the word and in every like place on the pitch, that's the problem. Is like you can look everywhere and say F is the grade, F is the grade, F is the grade. And like it was, I mean, to be fair, I guess when Poch, his quote, I guess, well, everyone looked. So like, I wanted to talk about, Dan, how like Petrovic, I was going to look into his numbers a little bit and be like, okay, how good of a first season has it been? No point in doing that anytime soon. Just got shipped for 5.
Yeah. I mean, there's one standout star of the signings, and that's Cole Palmer. And then everybody else. I mean, you could argue Malagusto's been really good, in terms of his performance.
Gusto's
He's kind of
been great.
Yeah.
He's been great. There's nothing wrong with Gusto.
He's a right back. He's not going to carry us.
I think everybody else is open to a conversation for, if you're looking at, you could have had someone like Trossard versus, Nani Madueke or Mudryk, and he's helping them go out and win the Premier League, potentially. Awful end of season potential, but could happen. Very realistic situation. I mean, there's players here, I think, in general, that are not at the level of a side that wants to be competing for European football and be in European football. And we put too much emphasis on this idea that all of these bets would come good. And I think the thing is, like, when you're trying to win in Vegas, right? You're trying to be like 55% of the time winning. Like that could be enough. Like 55% hit rate on your signings for Chelsea is probably not the target we want to be aiming for. Like every 1 out of 2 buys is a hit. I mean, we bought a lot of players, and we're not at that level. Like not every 1 out of 2 players we've signed over the last season is a hit. And there have been players who, in this match really struggled. I mean, you look at someone like Declan Rice, who had a really, really great game, and it's going to come up every time that Chelsea play Arsenal. Declan Rice had a great game. Enzo didn't. Moises did not. Connor had an okay, but not great game. But he was also like flying out into the left wing again, which why? It's just going to keep on coming up, Nick. I mean, the players, to the point that you mentioned, did not look up for it. And I know that some of them played the majority of the match against Man City and had to come in and be involved for this game again. And so like I do give credence to a few of those players, but there are also players who didn't and came in fresh and should have looked a little bit more up for it, particularly if they're thinking about this idea that like they have a debut between now and the end of the season for Poch or whoever the other manager is, or for the sporting directors, about what their Chelsea journey and Chelsea future looks like beyond the end of the season.
I went on Sirius XM right after the game, which was a huge mistake. And,
terrible idea, right?
Yeah. I mean, I was talking to that crew, and I got asked the question like, well, what is there to play for now? And I was like, everybody in the club is auditioning for next season right now. Everybody, every single person at the club is auditioning for next season. Like, you're telling me if you're Noni Madueke and you haven't played a ton of matches this year, that you're finally getting like 3 or 4 in a row where you're featuring, like there isn't anything to play for in these last 6 games? You fucking serious? If you're Mudryk and you've been poor and sidelined for the majority of the year, you have nothing to play for. Jackson, Benoit Badiashile, Kukurea, Like every single person should be out there at 100% go to prove that they are the right fit for this club moving forward. And none of them did that today. None of them put in a shift against a rival in a in North London, but in a London derby for us to prove to the fans or to themselves that they're ready for this. And again, what's there left to play for? I mean, first of all, as fans, you fucking owe us after this one. You owe us way more than what you gave today. And two, you owe it to yourselves. I can't imagine what they're thinking right now, but the worst thing that you could do is just fall into this woe is me, woe is us, woe is this situation. I'm getting paid hundreds of thousands of pounds a week to go shit the bed because yikes, man. It's a really bad look.
Brandon, there's a couple of stats that underline how bad of a look it is. Two here, expected Chelsea with the amidst all the 100-point team jokes, brutal reality, just hit me. Chelsea have accumulated 91 points in 70 Premier League games since the Blue Co takeover. Abysmal. Just rapid reaction to that one. Give me your thoughts.
Reminder, when they came in and took over, that was their target, right? Hey, we're going to be 100-point team. That's what we're building, right? That's what the coach sporting directors are building here. 91 and 70, right? Like,
to be fair, they didn't say in how many seasons.
100 points over multiple seasons.
I would like to think the implied sentiment would be in the Centurion season, guys. That's 1.3 points a match out of a possible 3. If you average 1.3, that's a pretty mediocre team, right? And when out of 38 matches,
62.4 points.
Look, 50-point mark is just above relegation area, so it's not good enough, and I don't like it. That's my immediate reaction is egg on face, massively.
Nick, another one here from Naz was that Chelsea have suffered a club record for goals conceded in a single Premier League season. We have that record now to butt up against our goals allowed in a Premier League season stat, which I don't think will ever be displaced. And I will look back on that one fondly. But 57 league goals conceded and plenty of games left to play, as Naz puts it.
Thanks, Naz. The great irony of this being hit and John Terry going into the Premier League Hall of Fame after he was a part of a team that let in 15 goals all season in 2004-05 is not lost on me for sure. And I think I think one of our 3-word match reviews was worse than Potterball. Defensively, this is a shambles. I mean, it isn't a complete and utter embarrassment. And I have moved into, we'll talk about the manager later, but I've moved into a different way of thinking about the manager than I have been previously. This is the reason why. I mean, we are a sieve. This is so embarrassing and predictable to watch. And he has not set up the team differently all year to deal with what he knows is a leaky defense, what he knows is a rotating cast of characters. This team doesn't play like it has something to lose. It just plays like, hey, we're just going to go. You score 4, we'll score 5, except we don't score 5. We score 0. And so this is part of the reason why I'm pretty frustrated with the way he sets up the team.
Let's move on to talking about the manager, the sporting directors, and what comes at the end of this season. But we'll do that after our last ad break. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. So we can continue this conversation about whether or not the manager does or doesn't inspire confidence, whether or not they set the team up to be successful, to win instead of draw, and to draw instead of lose. If they have the right training regimen in place to not put players into the red zone or to spark further injuries. If they have the ability to handle the press and handle the supporters as a quote unquote Chelsea manager. And I think all of the fact that we don't have an answer to some of those questions or conclusive answers is a huge, huge part of the problem. I think there are a couple quotes after the game here, Brandon. One that like Poch said, when we have bad days, we are so bad. We are capable of being very good. And then a few days later being very bad. And then follows up to say, I'm not going to blame the players. It's the circumstances that are bigger than the players. We need to be careful. We can be unhappy with our performance, but I'm not going to use a word like embarrassed, which is in the question. That
I
is
will.
unfair to the players in our.
You know what, Dan? I'm gonna go ahead and I'm embarrassed. Anyone else? Anyone else
Thank you.
embarrassed?
Glad we have that
Okay.
on record.
Yeah.
That is unfair to the players in our squad. And I guess just we've had a chance to do the get ourselves excited for Misa Pochettino in the summer. We had an opportunity to give him some, maybe early time to bake and figure out if we were going to get a guy that we liked. We had some, unbeaten runs, parts of the season that started to maybe get us feeling a little bit better about things. And now we've got a massive 5-0 crater that he is currently occupying somewhere in North London. What's the read?
Well, I think the read is we're in 9th place and we've been mid-table all season, even with these little, glimpses, right? Of, hey, we won 3 in a row in match week 19, 20, 21. Hey, we went undefeated since match week 24 until this week. But the problem is Poch and this team have never actually been able to do anything that has a positive outcome or actual results that include climbing the table. I mean, we've dipped, but like we're pretty straight between like 10th place throughout most of this season. And you have to manage to results and things like that. And all of the decisions, not all, like a lot of them have been forced on him when choosing the lineup and things like that. But I still think that there was some bad decision making, even when forced with a bad hand, that let this team be in a situation to leak goals, to not be able to be a scrappy 1-0 win, to be able to have a siege mentality. And I don't know if there's been too much coddling or what, but like at the end of the day, these are results, and the results are bad. The results are a 10th place average throughout this entire season, and we've literally in the last 3 weeks should be comfortably sitting. I mean, I would say at least the top 7, right? If not 6th, and we can't. And that's the problem. That's the disconnect. No matter what excuse or situation or context there is, the end results haven't been there. And that's that's where the fans are at. Like Nick, if you could climb the table and get up there or find ways to win, or not get absolutely blasted by Arsenal in a very obvious situation, like the fans can stomach that. But the fans have understandably been just unimpressed and disconnected all season because results have not been there whatsoever.
I would like to think that we have exercised a fair amount of patience throughout the season, compared to others out there who, I think week 4 or 5 were starting to get all up in arms about the situation. Like Dan, I did some reflection. I went on a very long walk after work, and I was just trying to like get myself in check for this, because I was steam coming out of both ears as soon as the final whistle went. I think, do you guys remember the aura from the summer? Do you remember the aura? Do you remember the lemons? Do you remember all the bullshit?
Oh yeah.
None of it's really mattered. And I was talking to Naz a couple of weeks ago, and I think Naz makes a point that is becoming more and more right as we go, which is Tuchel and Potter were dealt a way worse hand last year. Lampard too, but by that point we were already cooked. Than what Poch was dealt with this year. Like, be very clear about that. There was so much more chaos last summer of 2022, 2023 than there was 2023, 2024. And Poch knew what he was walking into. There couldn't have been any doubt about that. I think some terrible, terrible injury luck that I have reserved away from criticism for him for a long time, because some of it is not his problem, right? The turf in Chicago being terrible and Kunku getting hurt is not on Poch. That's on the club for setting that up and being okay playing on that. But if you just look at his performances, what he is responsible for this season, if not for Cole Palmer, just being a freelancer and understanding how to play football appropriately, and being one of the very few players who has exceeded expectations, we'd be nowhere. We'd be 14th, 15th place. I mean,
he'd be gone. He
would have been gone a long time ago. And so I look at this and I thought, genuinely thought that, if you're able to beat City, go to the FA Cup final, no way he's leaving. It would have been too much. If you're able to get a result away at Arsenal, get a result at home to Spurs, maybe away at Villa, although I think now that's going to be really tough. If you strung together 10 or 11, 12 unbeaten, but with wins in there, not just draws against the bottom of the table, he could make a really strong case. I'm doing it. It's taken longer than I'd hoped, but I'm doing it. And here's the proof positive of that. This team is nowhere near ready to play 2 games a week consistently. Nowhere near. And they're all young. And they're not getting better structurally. They're not getting better tactically. The subs, we see the same mistakes all the time. And the results will be that we'll finish 9th or 10th now. I'm very sure of that. I think the crumble is coming off the crumble cake. And I don't see a reason why he would want to stay, nor why the club would like him to stay, Dan. That is where I'm at.
I mean, anytime when your firing involves millions of pounds owed to you, I would say that there's probably reasons to want to stay employed. For those of us who are not in the same tax or income bracket as Mauricio Pochettino, I think it is a matter of saying, if we have not been looking and actively speaking to intermediaries for some of the other top managers available this summer, we have not been doing our due diligence to see if there is a way to improve this team. Mauricio Pochettino is probably a fine manager for a handful of Premier League teams that do not have the same ambition that the ownership and board claim to have with where they want Chelsea to go, as a part of what they said in acquiring this club, and the part of what has been repeated in multiple forums and multiple settings about where Chelsea expects to be. And that is competing in Europe, competing at the top level of Europe, challenging for the league, 100-point seasons. None of that is going to happen with Mauricio Pochettino as the manager of Chelsea Football Club. And so if you are okay with another year of trying to figure out if you can get it right, to link a couple results together, to get some more of that luck DNA that Manchester United has been manufacturing this season, and you can borrow a little bit of that to get back up into a top 6, top 4 place, go ahead and do it. But there is not enough examples of positive action and behavior from this manager over the course of the season to say we absolutely 100% should have no reason to consider another alternative or another option heading into the summer.
There's 2 other points I'd like to make about this. One, if you look at our cup runs, we've never had easier cup runs ever. Ever. We had the best draws in each cup all the way up until the semifinal. You're gonna have to play fucking somebody in a cup, and we finally got the final boss, and I think acquitted ourselves okay. But looking back on that result after this result, we played hella great. It was awesome. But it's one of those deals where the second point is now more important, and I wasn't fully bought in on this for most of the year, because I think there's a lot of sensitivity amongst fans about the club, the state of the club, the results, all this sort of stuff. But the more and more you look at the press conferences, the more and more you look at quotes, the more and more you look at the body language on the touchline, the less and less it looks like he really wants to be here, that he really wants to make a connection with the fans. Like, even in the biggest moments after Manchester United, he took a moment to go, well, I'm not going to be a clown. I'm not going to show up like that. And before the game, I recounted how a down and out Chelsea side in 2014, who were, just off of the title race, threw out a B squad and beat Liverpool, who was charging toward the title. Obviously, famous Demba Ba slip moment in there from Stevie G. And Jose Mourinho, who was recovering from the flu, came out and pounded the badge, and that Chelsea end just went up in raptures. I was hoping to God for something like that today, Brandon. I was really hoping for another one of those shithouse performances where we did everything, battened down the hatches, came out with a result, showed some character, and it just was nowhere to be found. And at that point, how much are they growing?
The wrong way, right? They're growing in negatives, right? In experiences and things like that. But Poch even said he didn't want to be a clown on the sideline. So really interesting that it is almost apathetic as well on the sideline. That doesn't help. Even Arteta looked like a fool, like, raising his arms to the crowd after Odegaard blasted over the bar. But like, he's making that connection. He's trying to draw it together. And I think a lot of the supporters in the stands have said that they've been very disconnected from him. I've even just seen on X, match going supporters calling out international fans for, backing Poch because the ones in the stands have no connection with him. Right. And it's very separate. And it sucks because, like, on paper, you would say that Poch is put this team in a position to win many more points than we have, but the players haven't gotten it done. But again, like, he's got to manage to that, right? You can't just keep creating chances that nobody can score. That doesn't work, right? Why is the defense so god awful right now? There's a lot of reasons. Tired midfield, but I was listening to Matt Lawpod, he did, and he was talking about potential season-ending injury because he's been playing through stuff all season, but yet we continue to just plow on, even though we brought Cassidy back on loan. If we were only going to play him fringe minutes, let him stay. Like, it's the compounding effect of a bunch of bad decisions from top to bottom. And Chelsea are an absolute mess right now. Everywhere you look.
If onlys and maybes and probablys don't win you fucking points. And that is the line from what we've heard from the top, which is like, statistically, we should be so much better. We're fucking not. I mean, just be very honest about where we are right now. I mean, this result's obviously the darkest timeline, but like, maybes don't win you championships. Players who step up and take their chances win you championships. The right subs at the right time win you championships. Like, Trossard is a super sub for Arsenal. Obviously started today in this game, but that dude has come on and had so many big moments for them this season to keep them afloat. It's wild. And, to Arteta's credit, he got booked today and Poch didn't, down 5-0. Like, Arteta's a fucking clown. I don't think he's very good. But, we talked about this on the match review after the cup final. The Grealish handball is enough to get me as a manager sent off because you're fucking with my team. You're screwing with the potential cup final for my team. Nothing. Just zero, Dan. And that, I think it's all compounding right now. It's not one thing. It's a bunch.
And we talked about the players. We talked a little bit about Poch. I think you put this in our group chat earlier. You brought back a blast from the past from our sporting directors from their interview that they conducted, published on September 15th of 2023. We have the building blocks in terms of the staff, the skills, and the players that we think can take us forward. It's very exciting. That was from the on chelseafc.com interview with Paul Winstanley and Lauren Stewart, who I think are also at the top of many fans' minds as to what is getting done, what's the plan, what's the strategy for where this team is going to be going, particularly after numbers of players have been purchased, potentially have been on injury, or we talked about Romeo Lavia recently, has contributed less than a third of a Premier League game the entirety of the season and was a priority purchase this summer. Could it have been someone else that Chelsea would have gone after that would have been more beneficial to bring on this season. It's a lot of questions about
Dan, I would have been
everything.
more beneficial than 33 minutes, and my finishing is terrible. I mean, could someone have given us more than 33 minutes? Statistically, the odds are pretty good. Like, come on, man. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy.
To me, though, it all comes down to this point. Like, there needs to be someone coming forward and saying, like, hey, we have not gotten this right. And like, we're going to address this. We're going to get this figured out. It shouldn't be Pochettino. It probably should be, at least currently, Winstanley and Stewart, but it probably should actually be the owners at this point, who own the total accountability tree from player to manager to sporting directors, to where there probably should be some interim level to board and then owners, because that is the individual. Like, the shit rolls down, but the responsibility comes up. And like, they have a, I think, a duty as the stewards of Chelsea Football Club to start to figure out and outline, like, where are we going to be going next season? Because a third season of mid-table football under this ownership group, I think Phil, Chelsea Youth, put out there, good luck raising season ticket prices or announcing a raise in season ticket prices after this season. Do not envy that individual hitting publish on the post on chelseafc.com.
I mean, this one, Brandon, I don't know how you feel about this. To me, the owners of the football club now have to step up their communications with everybody, not just with the shadow board, not just with select influencers that they like or don't like. Notably, we're not a vehicle for them, so just a call out there. Like, they have to say something, and it has to come from their level. I don't know if hearing from Winstanley or Stewart would be helpful right now.
No, because I would say they're the ones responsible for the project, and it's not going well. Nothing's going to help right now. I mean, they just need to ride this one out, but we're getting to the point where they need to start coming up with what they're going to say. Summer tour is not far away. You cannot just rock up to the US without having said anything, making a decisive action, without, communicating something to give the fans hope or reprieve of some sort, because they look like a laughing stock in the Premier League ownership group, and it absolutely hurts as a supporter.
Well, and your point is right. Like, the ticket prices that they're charging for the summer tour are outrageous.
VIP packages for $1,000+, multiple thousands of dollars
for the quality of the team, like, and the way the team's playing right now, and the way the organization's being run, and like, who is even potentially going to be available with the summer tournaments that are happening, right? Like, all of these factors are there for consideration, Dan. I mean, this is no joke. Like, they have to figure a bunch of stuff out in like 2 weeks.
Groupon still exists, right? You might see a BOGO deal for Chelsea summer tour tickets.
Hey,
that's our next front of shirt sponsor.
Link me if you do. I'll grab a couple.
Look, it's 115 days until the start of the next Premier League season. It's 90 days until the first kickoff for Chelsea's summer tour match.
Really? So wait. Preseason is only 15 days long? 25. 25?
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. Well, there's the Euros. There's all the summer football.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's not great.
Copa
It's
America.
never great. Summer's never great. It's always condensed. It's terrible. It's hot. It's muggy. But at least there are beers pre and post match, and everybody feels good about that part, at least. Ultimately, though, Chelsea are in a bit of a pickle, because if we don't get some stuff done soon, we are going to be stuck in a really, really terrible position. But we want to know your thoughts. Please leave comments, send us emails, hit us up on socials, because we want to hear what's going on. Just to preview real quick, Burnley, we'll go through the matches. Burnley beat Brentford 2-1. Good for them. Luton and Forest drew 1-1. Forest very unhappy. Very, very unhappy about that.
Forest are angling for another points deduction. It feels like
they're looking for the opposite of good luck from officiating at this point, because they're not going to get any of it.
Just real quick, these results are from March, because we are adding in uh catching up.
Oh shit!
Yeah,
Yes,
we're
you're right.
catching up in our midweek match. So I was looking at these results. I'm like, Fulham beat Tottenham 3-0. I was like, how did I miss that? Oh, it was March 16th. So
Well, that was a good miss on our part. But anyway, that takes us to the table where currently Arsenal are on tippity top, 34 matches played for them, 77 points. Liverpool at 74 with a game in hand in second, and with 2 matches still to play to catch up to Arsenal. City are in 70 with 73 points, so they absolutely can gazump Arsenal if they were to win there. And then that's where you start to see the deviation. It is Aston Villa in fourth and 66 points, Tottenham in 60 points in fifth place, and Newcastle on 50 points in sixth. It's Man United, West Ham, and then Chelsea that make up seventh, eighth, and ninth place. We are currently 3 points off of seventh. And at the very bottom of the table, it's Sheffield, Burnley, and Luton, but Forest only 1 point separated from Luton right now. Luton could do something real funny at the end of the season here.
Here's the only thing in City's way is a trip to Tottenham. The second to last game of the season. They're notoriously terrible in that stadium. I don't know if they've ever won there. And they have Brighton, they have Forest, they have Wolves, they have Fulham and West Ham. But that trip to Tottenham is the only thing that could potentially trip them up. Otherwise, they'll be champions again, and we won't have to live through a Liverpool or Arsenal champions run, which would be just a gallon of salt into a gaping wound for everybody. Notably, Chelsea just still 3 points back of that sixth place spot. You know.
Well, look, that is going to do it for this episode, but plenty of more content coming your way throughout the week, hopefully talking about better things related to Chelsea Football Club. But that is going to do it for this one. So until next time, Chelsea fans, you know what to do. Keep your head up high and keep the blue flag flying high.